now I'm asking our president, Klaus Mainzer. Klaus, please address everybody. I'm saying hello to everybody, and you will make a wonderful introduction as usually. Please.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Dušan. Again, it is my pleasure to open this great series on arts meets science. And at first, greetings of the whole Academy to this audience. And especially let me thank Violeta for organizing that together with her new team. So far, it is a new configuration here in the organization. Very nice, very interesting. I think the title of this evening could be Medicine Meets Arts or Arts Meets Medicine, because both talks are concerned with medical and health questions. There is one talk under the request of making music for stress reduction, and I remember we talked about that for several times. It is a psychosomatic topic, I think. The influence of our mental health and our feelings by stress, especially, that can have even physiological and physical consequences. So I think that will be an important topic. And the other topic seems to be very special, only for a physician, ACS. And the speaker will explain us what is ACS, but actually it is very similar to the first mentioned topic. It concerns mental and developmental disorder, which can concern the fetal neuro development of babies. And so it concerns the situation, long-term consequences with pregnant women, and so it also includes ethical question for the treatment of these women with their babies. Anyway, these topics personally for me are on the background of a long-term engagement in my university at the School of Medicine. Every year since 15 years, I have to give an introduction to a graduate course on translational medicine. That is the term, translational medicine. It means topics in research on the borderline of science and medicine. And you know, in Germany, there is the tradition that all doctors must have an academic title, doctor. But actually, it is not very useful, I think, and other countries do not follow this line. But there are, of course, physicians who are mainly interested in research. And in Germany, they introduce a new title of doctor in medicine, that is Doctor Medicine in brackets Science. And that these young people are concerned, and it's not only physical topics on the borderline interface with medicine, but also mental health, psychotherapy, and things like that. And it's very exciting for me to give this integration talk. It's an interdisciplinary aspect. Now, anyway, that's my personal motivation, and I'm very eager this evening to learn more about that by these excellent speakers, and I wish us all a nice evening with exciting talks and, of course, exciting discussions. Thank you.
Thank you, Klaus. And Violeta, it's your turn now.
Thank you very much. I have the privilege, and I'm so happy to present Annette Kerckhoff. She is not far away from me here. She's in this moment in Oldenburg. And she was until 25 professor of medical education, dean of the Faculty of Health of the German University of Health and Sports in Berlin. She has worked for the Karl and Veronika Carstens Foundation for almost 30 years, explaining research findings from the field of integrative medicine to lay people and documenting and classifying self-help strategies. In her scientific work in the last decades, she has made women in medicine visible and researched their health concepts and recipes. Besides, she got a musical education and works in her holidays as a band coach with a focus on music making for stress release. Annette Kerckhoff is particularly interested in self-help and health-promoting factors, from simple household remedies to music, especially in intercultural and interconceptual comparison. Annette, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. Wonderful to be here. I share my screen. Here we go. So, yes, today my topic is making music for stress reduction. And I have the privilege that I already had the honor to speak to you 2 times. And first time was in 2022 on the topic, Can Improvisation Promote Health? And then 2 years ago, it was about extraordinary women in medicine. So you really can see that as my two main subjects. I come from the health and integrative corner, and that's what I did professionally at university. But now I'm going more and more into music. I just, for my 60th birthday, I gave myself a bachelor degree for musical education. So you will get a little insight in my bachelor degree. And what I did in Berlin is that after having some jazz classes, I was teaching the jazz kindergarten. That was people who never improvised in their life before, who had always played with music on notes, and they were adults who were either highly accomplished classical musicians, others were complete beginners, and many of them had played an instrument before in their youth and then taken a long break, and they wanted to give another chance to the music and playing music, so I could get some experience there. And the main topic for me is resilience and self-help. I want to start this lecture with 2 observations. The first is a story of a good friend of mine. He lost his wife after a long battle against cancer. And he told me that during her illness, he had neglected many of his friendships. He was an experienced bass player, double bass player, and he decided to spend his year of mourning by attending jazz workshops. His reasons were, I don't want to be alone at home. I want to be with people. I want to do something meaningful. I want to focus on something so my head just doesn't go in circles round and round. I want to be surrounded by music, and when I play music, I don't have to talk and I won't be asked about the situation. I like that. We have many studies about singing a choir, which go in a similar direction. But this was somebody who really intensely played his instrument in an extremely stressful time of his life. Another story is not as successful as that. Professor Gustav Dobos, he is a very important person in integrative medicine in Germany, in Essen, one of the pioneers. And he told me a little story when I talked about this project. He said, well, when I was writing my habilitation thesis, I thought it might be a nice idea to learn flute. And then I ended up at a Russian teacher, and she was kind of so strict that I always came there and I'd practice a little bit, and then something was here wrong and there wrong, and it was simply too demanding and frustrating, and I gave up. So these are 2 stories to start with and 3 statistics to start with. 1 in 4 people in Germany feels stressed very frequently. And as I know from my students who again are teaching health professionals of the future, that the generation Z, the young people who are 20 to 25 years old now, that they are extremely under stress, very easily overwhelmed. So stress is really a big subject, at least in Germany. Surely one comes to thinking music, playing an instrument might be a nice mean of stress reduction. And how is that? How many people do play? In fact, as you can see, 2/3 of Germans in a big study, Octave study, with more than 1,000 participants started to play an instrument, but in 2024, only 18% of the German population aged 16 or older still played something. And that was after Corona, after the pandemic. So before it was only 11%. And we can ask what happened to the ones who gave up and discontinued to play their instrument. Was it not enough time, not enough energy, not enough money, not enough musicality, whatever? What did they feel? So what I was dreaming about was to imagine that somebody would say, today was a really stressful day. And now I have to practice on top of everything. It's just too much. And coming from this mindset to the mindset, finally, I can practice a little bit. Finally, have some me time. I can learn something enjoyable in peace and quiet. And that would be an excellent counterbalance to a stressful day. So my question would be, how would one design instrumental teaching for amateur musicians so that learning and playing an instrument is mainly an effective means of stress reduction? So that's kind of a bit a different perspective than how do they learn most on their instrument. For this, I had 3 methods. First, I wanted to use established theories of stress which provide valuable insights into stress reducing mechanisms that are already well known in health promotion, preventive medicine, and integrative medicine. So my aim here in part 1 was to transfer these theoretical concepts into the field of instrumental pedagogy. Second, I wanted to see what is the state of research. So I reviewed the existing scientific literature on healthy amateurs, music making, and stress. One could see that it's a kind of fragmented body of research, inconsistent terminology, and unclear conceptual boundaries in comparison to music therapy or choir singing, for example. That is really well researched. And the third method was that I wanted to ask some experts and ask them for practical advice. So first, the stress theories. Here you have a sheet about a graphic about salutogenese. Aaron Antonovsky was an American-Israeli medical sociologist. No, you know what I mean. And he first presented in his landmark book, Health, Stress, and Coping, this model, which means that the main thing to cope with stressors and to bring you again a little more towards health is the so-called sense of coherence. The sense of coherence is a feeling and is a stable yet dynamic confidence that life is understandable, manageable, and meaningfulness. So these are the 3 components of the sense of coherence. And those people who can comprehend what is going on, who somehow can manage it, and to whom it has a meaning, cope better with traumatic situations, as you can see here. If one would bring that to the perspective of music, the implications are immediately apparent. Students are more likely to experience learning as healthy and motivating when lessons are understandable, when they feel capable of mastering the musical challenges they face, and when the learning process itself is perceived as meaningful. Second model, the stress theory transactional stress model from Lazarus. He has an interesting additional perspective. He says, not like there is a stressor, but it depends extremely how people interpret and appraise and evaluate a stressor. First, you can see here, is this demand coming from outside? Is it positive? Is it dangerous? Is it irrelevant? And then in a second round, they evaluate their resources. So they will say, my resources are sufficient or insufficient. And that in the end leads to the feeling of being stressed or saying, okay, there is a demand, there is a stressor, but I got the resources I need for that. For instrumental teaching, this model highlights the importance of students' subjective perceptions. The same musical task may be experienced as exciting by one student and overwhelming by another, depending largely on their confidence in their own abilities and previous learning experiences. As you can see here, that is kind of the really new thing about Lazarus. The third model comes from Germany, from Peter Becker. And what is interesting, he kind of developed the Lazarus model further. He differs between internal demands and resources. Sorry for the German sheet. Anforderungen are demands. And external demands and resources. Now, what does he mean by that? External demands include professional, educational, or social expectations. In the context of music, that might be the repertoire selected for lessons, the performances coming up, examinations, or ensemble rehearsals. The internal demands, and that is kind of really, really interesting, arise from personal goals, expectations, values, and standards. The example could include the desire to learn something very, very quickly, a piece, and say, I would want to play that in half a year, or to make a really great improvisation and compare yourself with people who kind of learn much more longer, or the fear that you may not make a mistake, or that is kind of the internal demand. The external resources are the social support, relationships, financial means, educational opportunities, physical environment, and for our context, really important, the time. So if one has little time and would want to practice like somebody who has a lot of time, that will end up in stress. So it makes a difference if somebody says, I am a doctor, I'm leading a department at a hospital, and I want to, once a week, I want to have guitar lesson, and maybe I can do some practicing, but maybe I just go there once a week, and the lesson should be adapted to that situation. The internal resources here, encompass the personal skills, the competencies, personal characteristics, and above all, their sense of self-efficacy. And that means that you have the belief that you are capable of successfully mastering challenges. That is very, very important in integrative medicine. If a patient has a chronic disease and he feels he can give his share to change the situation. So that is for us a very, very important topic. So now here I have designed this little sheet this morning for you, and I want to explain it because the writing is so small, but it's easy to understand. The green line are the resources. The red line is the demands. External is on the left side, internal is on the right side. So in this picture here, in this corner, you can see that it's the resources and the demands are in a kind of healthy distance, so the stress won't be too much, or it is more like something like oil stress, so it is easy to cope with the situation. Here, you have low external resources, high external demands, even if the person himself thinks he has lots of resources and doesn't value the demand as high. This is a really kind of normal situation, for me at least, in the jazz kindergarten, that the little practice, the exercise was not too difficult, but they themselves had the feeling that it's very high. They wanted to do it right away from the very beginning, play something really nice, not kind of play around. And they estimated their own resources very low. So it was more like, my only resource is from my musical education very far back. They wouldn't say, hey, I have 40 or 50 or 60 years of life experience. I'm settled. I'm kind of, from my person, I have all these resources. And this fourth variation means that the demands are below the resources. So it's kind of just boring, and that can lead to stress as well. The literature review. As I already said in the beginning, my search terms were various, and I learned even more, something like musicking or recreational music, doing that kind of snowball principle. And in the end, with all these included and excluded terms in PubMed, which is the biggest data bank about medicine and health, I had more like nearly 800 records. But then, as you can see here, many were excluded. It was music therapy, music brain, singing as intervention, listening, things about COVID-19, art forms, performance anxiety, performing arts medicine, and so on. So I had 17 studies about children, like these big projects in Venezuela, where kids from the slums get violins and play in an orchestra. From music students that were mainly Chinese and Asian studies, from professional settings where doctors or nurses would be invited to have something like 8 days of sessions of playing and maybe do some percussion or something, some about older and some even about laboratory studies. And the results were in these studies that it was reported what improved was the connection with fellow musicians, sense of belonging and welcoming. Then here, communication, patience, self-confidence, self-efficacy, and self-esteem. So the personality was kind of a bit bigger than before. Also, even in healthy or at least normally stressed people, just in the studies for nurses, for example, that anxiety, depression, and self-doubt went a little down. The elderly people would say they felt rejuvenation, they had a meaning in life, and they had an opportunity for creativity. The expert in interviews, totally different resource again. I had 6 experts, from musical education to jazz players. He's a leader of Berlin Jazz School. She's a great flute player who is kind of doing a lot of classes online. Professor Gunter Kreuz is from Oldenburg, musicology, and 2 doctors. And I had only one question, which was kind of in 2 parts. What recommendations do you have for instrumental teachers for amateur musicians to experience music making as a means of stress reduction rather than as an additional stressor in their life? And it was amazing and original and extraordinary what they would answer on this kind of really open question. Klaus, for example, that would say, one actually listens to oneself, or you have to shrink the exercise. The doctor would say, he was coming from hypnosis, for example, autogenous training. He says, in medicine, the patient visualizes their healed future state. In my view, this is equally applicable to music and music making. And Gunter Kreuz had a kind of really extraordinary idea and said, deliberately include mistakes sometimes, and then keep going. Don't let it disrupt you for your workflow. That was kind of a very different resource. Now I had very different data, kind of theoretical from here, evaluation kind of like picked from several settings and the experts. And what did I do then? I kind of turned all that into recommendation and categorized the recommendations. So I had these categories for stress reduction, cognitive, which are comprehensibility, as we know from the salutogenese, assessing the whole thing as a challenge, evaluating it as a challenge. Reflection mental work is kind of like the umbrella term for evaluation and your expectation, the inner critics, and all these things. The emotional terms for me are positive feelings, creativity, everything that is going self-orientation, self-determination. Physical is body work, physical relaxation and listening, as Klaus Rückbald said. Then the relationship, and in German integrative medicine, we would say Ordnungstherapie. That means that you have a kind of rhythm in your daily routine, and that was already also said. If we look at the results in the stress series, I hope you can read it, but I will tell you this bar here is mainly reflection and mental work. So if you listen to the stress series, how that instrumental lesson should be created, one would say the main point is help the students to reflect their self-picture, their expectations and all that. If we would ask the studies, it was the relationship, because there were so many study settings with group settings, and people really enjoyed that. It was also positive feelings and creativity. That's what the people liked there in these interventions, where 6 or 8 people would do percussion or learn a little bit piano together, but also in kind of fixed routines. And if you would ask the experts, they would say it's not about stress, it's about good lessons. If the pupil understands what he is about to do, if you can identify the problem, if you find the right music for him, then that is the point how you can release stress. But it's not primarily about stress. It's about making or giving a lesson which suits the student, so he will go on and enjoy playing that instrument more and more. If we look at all 3 sources together by frequency, one would say, if you want to do instrumental lessons, the reflection and mental part is important. The relationship to other musicians and to the teacher is important. The manageability is important, and the positive feelings. So what would be the consequence for the lesson itself? It could be just an idea. It could be that if we have, for example, a lesson of 45 minutes, one would use the kind of the pure music playing, working on a piece, to 30 minutes and take 50 minutes of other stress-reducing elements in there. One would point out the progress to erase positive feeling, or end the whole lesson with a kind of little success. One would analyze the difficult parts and give exact instructions. And I'm sure there are so many musicians here that you all do that, but I know a lot of people who learn an instrument and they are a bit frustrated because they don't make progress and they don't often understand their teachers. And maybe even understanding the piece, even in classical music, because in jazz, it's so much about the form and about the harmonies, and that really helps you understand the grammar of the music. Stress-reducing elements, which are kind of mainly stress-reducing, also like for in clinics for integrative medicine, it would be body work with body awareness, some kind of exercises, playing freely, improvisation, then being connected, playing together, having an amount of self-determination. What is the wish for the lesson? Reflect the whole yourself, reflect your emotions, and listening a lot. Maybe learn things by heart. If one would practice, and if one would practice only 20 minutes, you know, I'm thinking about the amateurs who say, I don't have enough time, I'm not good enough, I don't have a feeling for rhythm. One also could say, now that's your 20 minutes me time, and you can start with a little kind of relaxation thing, and then you can take maybe 10 minutes and practice like this shrinked exercise, which can be kind of meditative. You can play by ear, and so that you're kind of longing for your practicing in the evening or whenever. The take-home message from this lecture would be that it's mainly the emotional, mental, and social components which reduce stress. Realistic demands, playing and not only practicing, and playing with others. And it's not a question how good you play your instrument. It's not that if you play better, you are less stressed. It seems to be kind of a different strategy if you want to be a little more relaxed by playing or enjoy that simply. The limitations of my work, Hopsala, are surely that I looked in a medical database, I had problems with the nomenclature and so on, because not many people did research on exactly this. And there is Professor Altenmüller from Hannover. He has done a lot of work on that and just published a wonderful book, Why We Need Music to Survive. Further research, what I would find very interesting if one could transfer these for performance anxiety or develop music educational formats and interventions for instrumentalists who are going to teach, and maybe show these things to them. I would love to do that. And develop formats coming from stress theory and integrative medicine for professional musicians. I want to conclude with a very nice quotation of Gunther Kreuz, from Professor from Oldenburg, a colleague of Violeta. And he said, in principle, practicing and making music should be experienced positively as something one enjoys doing. And I think that is exactly what it is and what one should not miss, even if you perform or you are afraid that you hit the wrong note. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Annette. And now, Dušan, you may, yeah.
Yes, it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Alex C.Vidaeff from USA, who earned his medical degree from the University of Bucharest School of Medicine in Romania. He subsequently moved to the United States, where he completed his residency at Temple University in Philadelphia before relocating to Houston, Texas. The center, I think, one of the most developed centers in medicine, not only in USA but worldwide. He is currently Professor Emeritus of Obstetrics and Gynecology at Baylor College of Medicine. During his distinguished career at Baylor College of Medicine and Texas Children's Hospital in Houston, he gained international recognition for his expertise in the management of high-risk pregnancies and for his contributions to research in maternal and fetal health. His principal scientific interests have included prenatal diagnosis, preeclampsia, placental disorders, fetal growth restriction, multiple gestation, and the prevention and management of pregnancy-related complications. So he has made substantial contributions to the understanding of the pathophysiology of pregnancy disorders and to advancement of evidence-based maternal fetal medicine. Dr. Vidaeff has authored many peer-reviewed scientific publications, books. He delivered invited lectures at international scientific meetings, and made important clinical contributions to the field. He still remains actively engaged in scholarly exchange and international academic collaborations in maternal fetal medicine. So please start your lecture. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Dušan. Please interrupt me if my microphone is not working properly. I'm trying to raise my voice, although that can be a manifestation of uncontrolled stress. But Dušan, can you hear me now?
I can hear you, and I think everybody who wishes to give some attention to the talk will understand you clearly.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yesterday, I can tell you it was a little bit stressful because in his opening, Klaus was right, very correct about something. He said, what is that ACS? I realized that my presentation, I was under the impression that I already have a presentation that will be nice, but a lot of it was like, what is ACS? Any physician knows that, but non-physicians would not have understood. If I left the presentation the way it was, nobody would have understood anything, although the topic is very familiar to physicians. So I had to change everything, and I'm going now to share the screen. Okay, entire screen, share. Now, can you see my screen?
Perfect. It's
yes,
perfect.
we can see.
Perfect. And if I put it in slideshow, is it the, let's see. You see the title slide, right?
Yes, only the title. Try to scroll down.
Only the title. Only the title.
Actually, we can see everything, also the slides that he will show later on.
So now if I... the commands are not working. Okay, now I hope that you only see is like the slideshow. You only see the slide. Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
Right. In a way of introduction, I will remind you the fact that many discoveries in medicine have been made by chance. Sometimes you can say by accident. That should not detract from the merit of the observers, because you can see, you can observe something originated by chance only, but you need a powerful and brilliant mind to recognize the unexpected. If we think of the legend of Alexander Fleming in London, we probably all learned in school about that. In 1928, Fleming goes on vacation, and he had forgotten in his lab some Petri dishes with staphylococci plated on them. and he forgot about them on the windowsill. And coming back, he looks at them, and on some of them, mold had grown, mold. And he saw that around the mold, the bacteria had died. So this is how penicillin was discovered many years later. Our topic is about Mount Liggins in Auckland, New Zealand. So Mount Liggins in late 60s was interested in human, not exactly human party, human labor. The question that he had, and we still have the same question today, is what is causing labor? What is the trigger for the maternal organism to go into labor? What is causing delivery? Normal delivery, or especially important, abnormal delivery? Delivery that happens too early. His theory was that it's a hormonal influence. And he believed that corticosteroids are the main pathway, main trigger to labor. And he was conducting experiments. Well, in New Zealand, they have a lot of sheep, plenty of sheep, more than people. So he was conducting experiments in sheep, giving them pregnant sheep, giving them corticosteroids, and observing what is happening. Now, during these experiments, some of the sheep would deliver preterm. And if one of those baby sheep, the lamb, was delivered preterm, the baby was suffering the same as a human preterm. They cannot breathe. The lungs are immature. They cannot breathe, and because of that, they die. In human medicine, that is called respiratory distress syndrome. They struggle with it for a time, and then many of them will die. In Liggins' laboratory, they knew that they were born later during the day, and when the preterm ones, and when the workers would come back to the lab in the morning, those baby lambs were dead. He comes back one morning, and one very premature lamb was still struggling, trying to breathe, but it was alive. He realizes that that lamb, through the sheep, had received corticosteroids. So the idea was that maybe the corticosteroids given to the mother giving early delivery would help the development of the baby's lungs. And from there, he and his colleague, Ross Howie, started. It was easier at that time to start a human randomized control trial. These days, you have to go to the ethics committee. It's not so easy. Well, in late 60s, in New Zealand was somewhat easier, and they devised a perfect randomized clinical controlled trial of preterm deliveries. Liggins was an obstetrician. Howie was a neonatologist. And the results of the trial were crystal clear for everybody. However, they submitted the report to Lancet, and it was rejected. Therefore, they resubmitted to pediatrics in the United States, and this milestone publication in medicine was published in 1972, showing that respiratory distress syndrome was only 9% in these preterm deliveries with treatment, whereas without treatment, the incidence is 25.8%. Clear-cut, obvious, no doubt about the effect of corticosteroids. What does it mean, preterm delivery? Term in obstetrics is anything from 37 weeks up. At 37 weeks, your term. Delivery before 37 weeks is preterm. And of course, the more preterm you are, the severe prematurity, the worse the outcomes, and the survival is more questionable. Remember, please, 1972. What happened after this strong publication? Well, it didn't happen much. There was almost universal reluctance based on safety concerns. And this, for many years, this reluctance prevented the application in clinical practice of Liggins' findings. Let's go to 1981. It's 10 years later, almost 10 years later. In the editor of the Journal of Obstetrics and Gynecology in London received a manuscript from a well-known United States academic. No need to give any names, but I can tell you that he was the chairman of one of the Harvard medical institutions. And the manuscript was a review of the side effects of antenatal corticosteroids, claiming that there's not enough evidence to support the clinical use of antenatal corticosteroids. Now, what did Professor Hawkins did to reject the manuscript? Because this is how he felt. He felt that everything was wrong. Not everything was wrong, but too categorical on the negative side. To reject it, it wouldn't have been really a correct editorial position. So what he did, he asked Patricia Crowley, one of his younger collaborators, she was from Ireland originally. She asked Patricia Crowley to write a counterpoint. So he published the American manuscript, but he asked Dr. Crowley to write an answer to that. And many years later, Patricia Crowley was saying, I was either lucky or lazy because I decided to ignore observational evidence. My literature search yielded 4 randomized controlled trials of antenatal corticosteroids, 4 trials, including the Liggins trial, now 9 years later. Observational evidence means observational studies. Those are not the best level of evidence because you don't randomize agent to placebo to show clearly what's happening. There's no intervention. It's not an interventional trial. You just observe along the way. And whereas the randomized trial is clear-cut evidence. So this is how the first meta-analysis in obstetrics and gynecology came to life. And it was published in 1981, showing, again, although the methodology was not exactly what we understand today by systematic review, it showed a 68% reduction in respiratory distress syndrome with antenatal corticosteroids. 1990, 18 years later, given the continuous debate, the continuous opposing opinions relative to the advisability of antenatal corticosteroids, Patricia Crowley came up with the second meta-analysis of antenatal corticosteroids, published now in the British Journal. And by now, she had 12 randomized trials to analyze, including the Liggins one. Liggins was the first one, 11 others, showing the same beneficial effect, the fact that respiratory distress was reduced by 50% in treated infants, and neonatal mortality was reduced by almost half, 41%. Well, you would expect that to be the end of the story, but it wasn't until in 1994, the National Institutes of Health convoked a consensus conference over antenatal corticosteroids. And the publication of the consensus conference finally convinced the world about the truth in Liggins' findings. And it was adopted from that moment on. Antenatal corticosteroids were recognized as a major advance in obstetrics and became standard of practice. Now, 2 years earlier, in 1992, Graham Liggins had been knighted by Queen Elizabeth. He prevailed. He was finally happy. Not the same thing happened with his colleague, Howie, who remained bitter for the rest of his life. And he was heard at some point saying, well, of course, they rejected everything because they wouldn't expect anything good to come from a former colony about New Zealand. But by now, why is such a big deal about antenatal corticosteroids? It is because Liggins did not discover what is causing preterm delivery. We still don't know what is causing preterm delivery, and therefore we cannot prevent preterm delivery. The only thing that is available to us is to optimize, if we cannot prevent preterm delivery, at least to optimize the condition of these premature babies. And corticosteroids are the most efficacious modality of optimize the outcome of prematurity. And we see, well, this quote here, the cumulative evidence for the beneficial effect of a single course of antenatal corticosteroids is compelling. Yes, we all agree with that. However, you will see for the rest of my presentation that another word has to be added here. The cumulative evidence for the beneficial effects of a single course of antenatal corticosteroids, when judiciously administered, when adequately given, is compelling, is more than a word. And what am I talking about? Is that from initial resistance for almost 2 decades, we witness therapeutic exuberance. The NIH Consensus Conference had recommended antenatal corticosteroids only in cases of imminent delivery, because it is considered that once you give the corticosteroids, their effect is limited to maybe 1 or 2 weeks. If the mother doesn't deliver within 1 or 2 weeks, the effect is partially or lost significantly. They recommended antenatal corticosteroids for 24 to 34 weeks. 24 weeks was the limit of viability in 1984. 34 is when the babies do very well anyhow, so you don't need to do much. What happened afterwards, the exuberance. Although the recommendation was for use in imminent delivery only, we have seen in the clinics, in the hospitals, that corticosteroids are given just in case. Any risk of preterm delivery, any time, they just give it because it's good. And if it's good, more could be even better. So from one single dose, they started giving multiple courses of corticosteroids. Then the limits of when to give it, from 24 weeks, got to 23 to 22. So because the limit of viability has moved, I recognize that. But after 34, there's a recent American recommendation and the recent guidelines about what is called late preterm deliveries, 34 to 37. Let's give it at that time, which was rejected for the entire world, and we will see why. This is what has happened historically, and I've just described, is what we call therapeutic creep. It's creeping up on you. From an initial study or a guideline that had specific recommendations, people start exaggerating and giving it left and right, even in conditions that may not be appropriate. So what is the problem with that? What is the problem with that? The problem with that was that corticosteroids are a very potent hormonal systemic agent with pleiotropic effects. Although the target of antenatal corticosteroids use is the fetal lungs, given the pleiotropic effects of corticosteroids, given the fact that corticosteroids regulate up to 20% of the human transcriptome, there's the potential here of off-target, unintended effects on fetal development. Multiple animal studies have documented concerning findings after the use of antenatal corticosteroids on neurodevelopmental, on metabolism, on cardiovascular system. It is true that animal findings cannot always be translated to humans. This fact, notwithstanding, the concern remains. And the concern was actually recently enhanced by the publication of several large epidemiological studies, epidemiological, obviously in humans, population-based studies that showed that the administration of corticosteroids can be associated with long-term neurosensory, mental, and behavioral disorders, and an increased risk of infectious complications during the first 4 years of life. An extremely important finding in all these studies was that the risks that I've just mentioned are better defined for term-born babies. Let me explain that. If you are to be delivered very early, very premature, corticosteroids are the manna from heaven. They help. They have definite beneficial effects. Now, if you receive corticosteroids in utero, and you're born actually at term, and this is we'll see will happen. It happens a lot. If you're born at term, you derive no benefit from corticosteroids because you're not a preterm baby, but you only assume significant risks. Some of these ground-shaking studies from 2019 on, and I highlighted this meta-analysis of 30 cohort studies involving 1.25 million children followed up to the age of 2. And the analysis showed that in children born before 28 weeks, adverse neurodevelopmental outcomes are reduced in association with corticosteroids. However, in term-born babies, the rate of adverse neurodevelopmental outcomes increases. Now, people are saying, and they're correct, that these are observational studies. As I said earlier, these are not randomized control studies to show causation. An observational study can also show an association, but it's not a cause-effect type of relationship. However, as I was, observational studies can be limited by many types of confounders. And there are statistical methods to adjust for confounders, but not for total adjustment. However, as I was writing in this editorial in JAMA in 2024, the number of these epidemiological studies, the consistency of their findings, their wide geographical provenance, actually from all over the globe, and the quality of their reporting. All these things make it impossible to dismiss the concern. And in the same editorial, I was saying that from now on, we have to understand ideally, a randomized control trial will check on the long-term possible adverse effects of corticosteroid administration. But such trials are impossible. It's not to show that corticosteroids work. Liggins had initially 200 and something pregnancies. Yes, the immediate effect, you can show it in a few hundred patients. In order to show a rare, because not all children are affected, and neurodevelopment problems, psychiatric problems, these are rare events. To show a difference in rare events, you need thousands and thousands of enrolled patients, and then you need long-term follow-up. Nobody is going to be able to finish such a study. Practically is impossible. So I was saying that maybe the future research will have to focus on an explanation of the biological mechanism of this pathway to adverse outcomes. And recently in Science, we had an excellent demonstration of how these things occur. They used human neural organoids. Organoids are developed from stem cells that develop into all kinds of organs, mimicking the architecture and the function of the normal organs. They are human cells. And they used this model exposing the brain human organoids to dexamethasone. Dexamethasone is one of the 2 antenatal corticosteroids in use. And they observed an increased prevalence of the inhibitory neurons in brain development. Normally, in brain development, there should be a balance between inhibitory and excitatory neurons. And whenever the inhibitory neurons are overexpressed, this is known. That has a critical role in the pathogenesis of mental and neurodevelopment disorders. And this is exactly what they showed with dexamethasone use. It is time, I was writing in 2023, it is time to recognize that antenatal corticosteroids are far from an innocuous agent. What is happening today is that nobody questions the role of antenatal corticosteroids before 30 weeks in severe prematurity, clear benefit, they're most beneficial. You have to be careful when you give it between 30 and 34 weeks because the benefit is more limited. And especially what's happening in clinical practice is that there's an inability, our inability as physicians to predict with accuracy preterm delivery. We think that she'll deliver, but she doesn't deliver. And the result of that is that you give corticosteroids, and for at least 44% of these children will be born at term. They have no benefit, they only assume risks. Now, the hope is that machine learning, AI integration will develop better selection filters to select pregnancies that would benefit most and are more likely to deliver shortly after administration. And like this, we prevent unnecessary exposure. And it's a matter of timing of when you give it, and it's a matter that the world should move toward minimizing the exposure. And this is the last slide. In these conditions that I described, hopefully clearly, we are ethically bound to reconsider the approach to antenatal corticosteroids with focus on minimizing the exposure level. There are ongoing randomized clinical trials that are looking at the lower dose of antenatal corticosteroids, and the results are encouraging, especially a study ongoing in Singapore at this moment. And there's an ethical obligation to counsel the pregnant women on current uncertainties. And an open discussion in the administration of antenatal corticosteroids is important in shared decision-making with these pregnant women, especially not when she is threatening to deliver at 28 weeks. That is extremely worrisome, and there's no place for much talking. But when you give it at 33 weeks, or when you give it, as the Americans recommend, after 34 weeks, the parents should better be informed on the uncertainties and the risks that we know about. I will leave you think about that. We will decide if you believe that doctors always know what they're doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for a very, very interesting lecture. Actually, both are connected through corticosteroids because stress is related to the same substances. Violeta, may I ask you to lead discussion because I have questions for them, for both speakers, and I don't want to have any privileges to ask first, but I will raise my hand.
Of course, you may have privilege because you are yourself from this. Yeah, please, if you have directly a question, Dušan.
Yeah, I mentioned already that both talks are somehow connected. And with Annette, I think excessive stress, which was the main topic, can be even good for people if it's happening not too often. And I missed one thing. I don't know if there's any study done. Maybe to come to the lecture it could be stress, but it's a small deal. I think the main problem would be waiting for lectures and being in stress. What will happen at the lecture and so on. Is there any study done to focus on this aspect? And to ask Alex, I would have many questions, but it would take too long. So I will only ask you, what would be actually pathophysiology of beneficial effect of dexamethasone? It's a single injection, and the main problem with RDS is that lungs cannot expand, which is a metal surfactant. Is it any explanation about that? So these are my questions. I will not interfere too much unless I would have many questions for both of you.
So maybe
Annette first. Yeah.
So maybe I start. Yes, I'm sure there are so many studies about the good effects of stress and the problematic effects. We see that if you have breaks in between, stress is really a motor for doing things, because that's the original biological use of stress. And I'm really with you when one feels that one should see stress more, and there are more publications right now where they see the stress, also performance anxiety stress, as something positive. And I'm sure also there is a lot of strategies for people being in front of lectures, like today, like me playing the flute a little bit, and just but I was looking forward to it. I think that's the point. If you really like to do something, you are kind of in the end, you think it's stressful, but it's wonderful. It's a good thing.
Okay.
Dušan was right about that. Probably there is a connection between Annette's presentation and my presentation. We can say that today's meeting was about stress, because what do antenatal corticosteroids do? They stress the baby. You know, you heard about doping in sports, right? We know that. When they use doping, what do they use? Corticosteroids, okay? And some of them die, all right, from too much doping. So a little bit of stress is good, but when there's too much of these antenatal corticosteroids, the effects may be adverse. The question that what exactly, how do the corticosteroids help the lung? Because that is the main element that we want to help. If the lungs fail, respiratory distress syndrome, then everything is a domino effect. Everything fails in those babies, and this is how they die eventually. But what corticosteroids do, yes, you are again correct, Dušan. They help with surfactant production. Okay, there's surfactant proteins B and A that are the production is enhanced, and so the lungs can expand, the alveoli stay open, and the babies and the oxygenation take place, and the babies survive. Some of them.
Yeah. Thank you very much,
Thank you
Klaus.
very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Klaus.
Yeah, my question is actually on the line of Alex, because stress is not absolutely bad. We need stress. We all know that. It's a question of degree. How much, especially Other people need it. Artists need it. Without stress, it is boring. But too much stress, I think that's a point which should be underlined again. And then concerning Alex's presentation, the question what I want to ask you, of course, it's on the same line, more or less. Even a fetal brain must be able to some degree for resilience. That means if there is a bad influence on of disorder, and so that's my question: how much is such a young brain able to be resilient after stress? And stress cannot be absolutely avoided. So both presentations are closely connected. Yeah.
It is
please, may I just ask you to stop share?
How is it now?
Perfect.
Okay. Thank you. The deleterious effects of corticosteroids on the brain are still not completely understood. And it depends on the timing of administration. We know that the fetal brain is still developing at the end of the pregnancy. Therefore, we prefer babies to be delivered not only at term, 37 weeks, but 39, 40, not after 40, because the brain is still developing. The brain is developing even significantly even after birth. It's a matter of timing, and but it's overall in all this entire discussion, it is about risk and benefits, and this is what has to be conveyed to the parents, and this is what everybody should understand, that if you are early in pregnancy, when the risk is not theoretical, is definite risk of death. Okay, to give an agent that will help survive, and in the majority of the cases, intact survival, and it is reasonable to accept some risks of effects on different on other organs, risks that, as I said, are still largely theoretical. Now, when the risk of death is no longer there after 34 weeks, when the only risk is some tachypnea of the newborn, to recommend administration of corticosteroids it doesn't respect the consideration of the risk, benefit risk balance, because when a baby that is going to be born at term is not even benefiting from corticosteroids, then why 44%, some publications 51% of these babies would assume a risk, even if you tell me that it's still a largely theoretical risk? Yes, but they should not assume any such theoretical risk. And what theoretical risk are we talking about? You want to reduce tachypnea of the newborn. Even if you don't do anything, it goes away. But the theoretical risks are about what? Psychiatric disorder, behavioral disorders. That is a major thing. It's a major risk. If we see how the story is going about corticosteroids. It takes decades. If in 20 years from this presentation, we will know that indeed this is what's happening, and the risk is not only theoretical, it's going to be proven, we will have a lot to be sorry about. You will have a lot to be sorry about the indiscriminate, liberal use of antenatal corticosteroids.
Thank you very much. I see that Annette would
Yeah.
like to say something.
No, I have a question for Alex. I'm very interested, but I know this is not easy to say in such a situation, but what would you say from your long-term experience? What are the main reasons or components why babies come too early?
Nobody knows. So I choose a profession in life that is probably an easy one to deal with pregnancy, because we don't know what is causing delivery. We don't know what is causing preterm delivery. It is abnormal to come early. It shouldn't happen. But why is that? You can say that when you are in a field where not much is known, it's easy to practice, or it's an opportunity for a lot of research, it's an opportunity for developments and a nice field to study. But yes, it remains unknown, preterm delivery. It's the major concern in obstetrics, preterm delivery, and the funding. Most of the money goes in that direction to find research for the study of preterm delivery, and hopefully one day we'll find the reasons, and only at that point we will be able to prevent it. If you don't know, you cannot prevent it. We cannot even predict. I said that. We cannot even predict correctly, accurately, the preterm delivery. What about preventing it? Absolutely not. President Kennedy had a baby that died as a premature born baby. And in that hospital where it happened, it was in New Jersey, the baby died, although the Liggins study was out. But in that hospital, they did not believe in antenatal corticosteroids. And the baby died. And at a short interval, well, these are anecdotes, another child was born in America, and he received corticosteroids, and now he's a famous actor, and he survived at the same gestational age. These are anecdotes. But what is about Kennedy, that after that happened, he initiated, he placed a lot of funds in research for antenatal corticosteroids. So the Kennedy and NIH, the Maternal Fetal Medicine Network, is named by one of the Mrs. Kennedy, Ms. Schreiber Kennedy. Yes, it's well funded, and hopefully it will work. Kennedys have a negative impact in the evolution of psychiatry in the United States. After one of the sisters was submitted to, Kennedy was saying, abuse in the institutions, electric shocks, lobotomy, things like that. They closed all the inpatient institutions in the United States. So psychiatry these days is mainly outpatient, and therefore we can say all the crazies are on the street.
Thank you.
It's very dramatic.
Yes.
Very dramatic.
It's medicine.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you so much. So Maria Luisa Della Chiara, please, Maria.
Thank you. I have a question for the first speaker. I found extremely interesting your talk because personally, I like very much the amateur music. I find that Germany, in this respect, is a very happy country because, as is well known in Germany, das Hausmusizieren is a very frequent activity. I live in Italy, and unfortunately, this does not happen in Italy because in Italy we are living a kind of musical contradiction. In this sense, as is well known, we have very good, extremely good professional musicians as performers, even as composers. At the same time, das Hausmusizieren is a rare activity. We don't have many non-professional quartets. We have amateur chorus. For instance, I belong to an amateur chorus, and I like this activity very, very much. Anyway, my question is the following. Only at the end of your talk, you have mentioned the problem of stress that concerns professional musicians. I guess that, but this is only a hypothesis, that the problem is completely different for amateur musicians and professional musicians who have very great and difficult problems. The problems are very well known that concern the anxiety of public performance, the career problems, competitions, and so on and so on. So my question to you is, do you think that the stress problems of professional musicians can be faced by musical methods or perhaps with completely different methods that are not musical, and perhaps the methods that are very helpful for amateur musicians cannot be helpful for professional musicians. This is my doubt.
Yes, thank you. The first part is very interesting, and maybe you have to invent la musica de la casa, quelque chose comme ça. Something like this, you just start that amateurs play music and play quartets. Yes, the situation for professionals is totally different. I mean, they are under pressure, they have expectation, they have to work, and the situation is unclear, financial situation, it's not just a hobby. So that is a different situation. And the ways to cope with performance anxiety and generally anxiety and stress of the existence are also different. But it could be, and that could be kind of a next project for me, that some of these approaches from the stress theory to comprehend the situation and everything I said might also be useful because they come from a very different corner. And I had a long talk with professional musicians in France, and they, in fact, they thought from time to time they could a little bit engage in what amateurs did, just have fun playing together and be a little more relaxed and be more in relationship, not be in competition, building up the relationship to the audience, just speaking to them. And if you play jazz, it's all about that you somehow find an emotional approach to the people who listen. And we had this wonderful talk here about the Russian musicians, and that was the same thing. The emotions and it's not so if you play the right note. So I might imagine that some methods are good and others not for professionals. But I know from the research that 67% of professional musicians say they have performance anxiety, which I find is very much.
Thank you.
May I have a word
Please.
about this music topic? Thank you. I think musicians, professional musicians, should be stressed. That's the way of living. You have to live in stress if you are professional. Otherwise, you become amateur. And this is not because you are doing for living. That's your life. And you have to struggle every day with your own targets, with your goals. And you have to rise every day your target if you want to be better. So this stress is really necessary. As an artist, you can't do anything without suffering. Arts come from suffering. It's not something we are happy and we produce something nice. Never ever. The problem with amateurs, I think, that's a strange thing for me, because I never thought that music can produce stress if we are doing by pleasure. Should be pleasure. And this is something very interesting. If it happens, this kind of things, they become stress of what? They are trying to learn an instrument and they don't like the teacher maybe. I remember when I started 5 years old studying music, my school was so tough, was that Russian mentality that teacher perhaps had when he or she tried to teach that student, and he got scared. Because I grew up in working a lot, and it was something natural. I went to school. I had to wake up 6:30 o'clock in the morning. I started school 8 o'clock, finish at 2 o'clock. And when I went back home, I had to practice 3 or 4 hours, 3 or 4 hours piano, and then do my homeworks. So I had about 10 or 12 hours of working since I was 6 years old. So for me, it's something natural. It is stressed, but for me, I feel well like this. So for an amateur to say, I have to work a lot, I do whatever he or she does in his or she's life, a different work, and then I have to practice an instrument, and this is stressful. Yes, and should be something for relaxation, for being happy. And I think the problem then, in this case, is a dichotomy in between what he can do with that instrument and what he expects to realize in a very short time. I mean, they think we do music for fun. Then should be fun. I can play flute in 1 hour. I studied, and I still studied. I'm 67 years old, and I still play 8 hours a day flute. Yes, okay, it's my profession, but it's impossible without. So if you are doing by pleasure, just play with that instrument. But they expect, because music is for fun, to play all of a sudden to an instrument. Very nice, very well, to please their environment, their friends. This thing, it's impossible. It's like you are I don't know what, a driver, and all of a sudden you decided to be a writer, and you want to go to have some lessons with a writer to teach you how to write, but you are illiterate. Music is a language. a language you should start since you were born. Like the lady said before, in Germany we do in the family, and then it's more natural. It's a language. It's like I'm trying now, I don't know, to write in a different language and to pretend I'm a writer. Yeah, but music, if you don't have the main tools to work with, then the information is so strong and you get scared, you get stressed. It's too much. If you don't know the notes, you don't know the music theory, the rhythm, it's so difficult to play. And that's I think the main point you should study. What happens with their mind? What are their desires? Because the mentality in 21st century changed a lot because of computers. We want just to press a button and to have everything all of a sudden in a second. So our patient is completely changed. We don't need 4 hours per day to get a little bit of something. No, we want to have it in 2 minutes, not even in few seconds. So for kids, their attention is completely disordered. They want fast everything. That's a problem for a teacher. How to teach them immediately to get something to please them. And this is very difficult, and they get scared. But I insist, music is language. If you are illiterate, in music, it's impossible to get information, proper information, to make you feel well. You feel anxious in one day because you don't want to recognize your problems. You just say the teacher is too tough. He wants too much from me. But you have nothing to put in. That's the problem. So let's say if it's for pleasure, let it be like that. For me, for example, to read and to listen music is impossible because my attention goes immediately to music. And for me, music became stressful. You know why? Because if I go by bus, I listen music. In an elevator, I listen music. In a subway, in a restaurant, everywhere I go, I listen music, and usually it's bad music, which makes me very angry.
But what about improvisation?
And improvisation, it's also science. You have to know grammar. You cannot improvise in writing, to improvise without knowing how to write, without having vocabulary. Improvisations means vocabulary, and music is language. If you don't have this vocabulary, it's impossible to improvise. If you put an amateur to improvise, he will suicide very
Your
soon.
notes, it's also possible just to imagine, to use objects who could
That's
produce
play.
sounds.
That's a play. When you play, that's what I'm talking about. You have to play. You have to enjoy. You can improvise with kitchen tools. You can
Yeah.
make music. You can do so many things, very nice things, to be attractive.
Sorry,
Yeah,
I have to come. Would you say that my vision, that the doctor says, oh, you are so stressed, you have sleeping disorders and pain and all that,
yeah.
learn an instrument, yeah? That you would say, forget it. Forget it, it's too difficult, it's too stressful, it's vocabulary, you
For
have to learn, you have to do hours
you
to do.
stopped the internet, I think.
Oops.
It was a little stop in the internet.
Yeah.
I'm here
Now
again.
it's okay. Now it's okay.
Oh, sorry. Well, I was just in my big speech. Well, would you say that this idea of establishing, making music for people who have stress disorders, that is a bad idea because they have to learn and work so hard to achieve something?
When you learn an instrument, you should start, no matter what age you are, you should start it by playing, how do you say, not playing the instrument, să te joci, to play with the instrument. I mean, to find something funny, and usually depends what kind of instrument, because piano responds immediately for one touch. You can get a sound. If you ask somebody to play flute, it will be a disaster. You need months, maybe a year, to get a sound on flute. So depends the instrument. But if you ask, and it's a good reason, of course, but for distress, not being more stressful, you are learning an instrument. Yeah, you don't have exams. Do it for pleasure. Play something very nice. The teacher should ask what kind of music you like, what melody. Sing the melody, and let's find on the instrument how it sounds. Because that one who goes for this kind of reason, I'm sure he doesn't know music, notes, to read notes. And this becomes stressful. If I show you another vocabulary on the paper, becomes stressful all of a sudden.
But there are also approaches that people say you just do everything by ear. You play your favorite music and then you try to kind of find out which note and you play a little bit on top. So it's kind of a different way of making music than playing complicated things from the music.
Yeah, and should be relaxing, not stressful.
We have a good concept. Yes, play piano, not flute.
Make it with joy. Do something that you have fun. Lots of fun. You have to find a way to be fun, not to be stressful.
Even if it's stressful a little bit, is much better than being put on medication.
Right.
Some psychiatrist.
Exactly. No drugs, just playing music. Yeah.
Yes, but no side effects.
We invent a new program, it may be a little stressful playing together and all these things, it's the medicine music bridge coming together here, starting in Houston for pregnant women.
Yeah, under the water.
Flowing both ways.
Them only once in a while.
Yeah.
It's incredible. It's fascinating to listen to your thoughts. And there are so many correspondences between what you think and what you do. And it's really wonderful. I would like to ask if there is somebody else to say something.
Yeah, Livia. Livia wants to say something.
Livia, oh, good. Livia, please.
Hello everybody. Annette, I enjoyed very much your presentation, and I would like to tell you about some very, very high professionals who still have anxiety, very, very much anxiety playing in public. So it is a completely different. It's like speaking in public. Speaking in public is involving anxiety, but playing in public, for one, is the same as playing for 1,000 people. It is you against yourself to do the same as you prepared that music. So it's very. So I would like to tell you about a divine pianist who is Maria João Pires, a Portuguese pianist. Now she's 70. Absolutely an angel for the piano. And she stated that the piano never adopted her. So I was so impressed with this. It means that she was never ease with the piano. After all her career, and she was a prodigy. Another pianist, for example, Maria João Pires said that playing on the stage doesn't mean that you are special against the others who are coming to listen to you. So she is dressing herself very, very informal and very, very modestly, because otherwise will make her anxious, because she will feel in a special situation, in a more stressful situation. Other example is Radu Lupu. If you know, he was sick behind the stage before the concert. Even he had to be pushed on the stage sometimes. I heard some stories. And Marta Argerich, she doesn't like to play alone on the stage. She prefer to play with the orchestras or in chamber music. Being alone on the stage is very stressful. So I will ask you, what do you think could be a solution for this? On the other hand, Lang said that he's a bit anxious before, but when he's on stage, he is home. So it's a different. So he feels home and he is very free. So I would like to ask you, what do you think would be a psychological solution for these very sensitive artists, very acclaimed artists who still are very fragile on the stage?
That is so impressive what you told us, all these stories. And one heard, I think, was Glenn Gould. He doesn't even play in public and he only recorded.
Yeah.
I felt for amateurs, so I only know something about amateurs, but maybe that is interesting for professionals as well, that when they were excited, it was always like giving birth to the music. It was, if you love the music so much, and people come to listen. So before it was just a sheet of paper with some black dots, but suddenly it's something is growing, and you are the one who cherish this wonderful music. So the music you love so much, and it's such a pleasure to bring this music to the people who come to listen to you, and then everything else is not that important. But that's only kind of on the amateur level. But I could feel that if you're too tense and you start to compare yourself and something, you forget that it's mainly that in your personal style, and people want to listen to your personal style, how you interpret this piece. And that's why they come to you. They want to know who you are and see your person in this, how the way you play.
It's a pressure, a very, very big pressure on you.
Yes, I'm sure to imagine, but for the people who come, it's always such a gift if people play music. If you can't do that, yeah, So, but maybe in 2 years' time I can have the next lecture and I will know everything about performance anxiety of professionals.
Okay, thank you very much.
So it's so important what you speak about. People, human beings are so different, and so in fact, it's very difficult to have only one conclusion. How to help people to exist, and this is also what Alex did. So I must thank you so much for what you presented today, and I was very impressed with Annette. I know her for a long time. I know her passion, and also Alex. I was so deeply impressed by the intensity of your emotional engagement, and I felt whenever we spoke about research is a profound of this profound existential importance. You are also so implied in this, and so with such a passion, it was almost like a music performance. Also, your presentation. So I would like to tell you that we are now 5 organizers of our colloquium. I see here Livia is one of them. Dušan, of course, also Peter and Barry and Andrew. And we would like now, I try to share now the program of the next, I don't know, I hope you see it, yeah?
Yes.
The program of the next winter colloquium. And the first colloquium would be on the 16th of October. And I would be very happy if you are interested to come again. If you would like to come again, you could also, I give you here my address. You could write me and I send you the invitation. And on the other hand, we would be very happy if you would also be interested to present your own topic. We prepare now the program in the summer semester, so I suppose it's nobody who would like. I would like to ask if there is somebody to say something now. Klaus, you are here. Dušan, Klaus, please. To say hello and to say bye-bye to us.
My message is very short with respect to the coming up term and with respect to our hot discussion this evening. Try to transform your stress into creativity. Thank you.
It's wonderful.
Right. Absolutely right.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And
yeah.
I wish you a wonderful summertime, and I hope that we will all meet during the next term. So yeah, welcome to join again. Now, bye-bye from my side.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.